Can you believe this rotten mess came out of our sailboat? Hello, we are Patrick and Rebecca Childress on the Sailboat Brick House, a Valiant 40, and we are hauled out in Richards Bay, South Africa, doing a lot of work on this boat. Actually, Rebecca's back in the US right now for 6 weeks, and that gives me some opportunity to dig into cabinets, fix bulkheads, tabbing, all kinds of things, and now investigate what happened inside of our battery box. About a year ago, while we were out in the Indian Ocean, I saw a dark spot, the upper one, kind of growing, and I did not see that as a good sign. I only figured it had to have been battery acid. So now that we are in Richards Bay, South Africa, hauled out, this is the time to dig in there and find out what's going on in that battery compartment. So first I had to take all the batteries out of the compartment. There's 6 Trojan batteries in here. So disconnect all the wires, yank them all out. I pull this pad out, which we had originally installed long ago as a cushioning underneath the batteries, and if any acid spilled, to help protect the wood surrounding it. So I got out a screwdriver and started poking around. Oops, what a surprise. I mean, how could these batteries have not fallen through that flooring? And even the support column was just eaten up by acid. This was a total surprise and very frustrating. I used to fix rotten houses in Rhode Island, so I recognize the problem here. You just have to start taking things apart and taking more things apart and keep taking things apart until you finally get back to where you might find some good wood. And so I started demolishing everything, unscrewing. Some of these screws, though, had been in here for a while, carrying supports that they just would not turn. So I had to get in with a Dremel and a cutting disc and cut the heads off. That way I'd be able to yank the screw through by grabbing hold on the support on the other side. This is inside the galley, just below the sink. Of course, there's always the fear of catching something on fire, so I did have a spray bottle of water right next to me, and every once in a while I would just stop the grinding of the screw heads and spray down the area with water. And fortunately the boat didn't burn down, but I was able to then yank the screws right on through that 3/4 inch plywood wall. And you can see the damage on that wall between the battery compartment and the galley. Very soft wood in that area. And this horizontal support, this is actually pressure treated lumber, and it wasn't nearly as soft as some of the other wood. So this floor, I had no idea that it would just pull right up. It was actually just setting in there. So that was the easy part to get out. But that wood was very saturated with moisture. It didn't harm my fingers. I wasn't wearing gloves, so maybe the acids were neutralized. I really can't explain anything more than what I suppose caused the damage. But now I have to figure out how to get this panel out. So I start tapping up the trim strip on top of the 3/4 inch plywood panel. I want to save all the wood for the installation. The last thing you want to do is take nails and pound them back through the way they came into the wood. That'll rip out the nice looking wood on the far side. So just grab some wire cutters and twist the nails out in the direction that they were pounded. That'll leave the face of the trim strip intact. So then it's a matter of prying things loose. Fortunately this wasn't glued, it was just all nailed in. But it was hanging up on the far left side, so that would call for the multi-tool, which is a very nice little tool for getting into tight places and cutting wood. But I didn't want to harm the teak finish, of course, on this cabinet, so I put 2 layers of blue tape and went to work with the multi-tool, just cutting straight in, making a nice straight cut. And of course the vacuum cleaner is trying to suck up as much of that dust as possible along with every cut. So these are plunge cuts, just going straight in until I go all the way through, then back out and make the next plunge cut. And of course that vertical support, that's going to be changed, that'll come out. We don't know what caused the battery acid leakage, whether it was somehow overcharging the batteries, maybe that bad storm that we were in the Indian Ocean that shook the water out, something to do with the battery caps. We really don't think we had the batteries overfilled, so far it's just a mystery to us. Be real careful because it's very soft down here. I don't want to break it.
I'm going to send it.
No, no, there's nothing to sand, it'll fall apart. It'll be like a magic trick, it'll just disappear. I thought I might be able to get away with just scraping back a layer of 2 of the plywood flooring. And I scraped and I scraped and it never got any better. The moisture meter just showed that everything was very wet. No matter what it looked like, it was still incredibly wet, so that meant I had to cut the tabbing out that was sort of holding it in place and used a small Dremel with a rotary cutting disc. Cut that tabbing back out, you yank it out of here, and then I would gain more access to that second flooring. And there's more tabbing to be cut along that partition wall between the aft cabin and the galley area just below the sink. There's so much of that area that would have to be cut out and be replaced also with new wood. It's amazing what acid will do, how far it'll go. And this is one reason why it's good that Rebecca is back in the US. There's just not room for 2 people. So much has to come out of these cabinets and storage compartments, and there's just no place to put it all. So we have 4 Trojan batteries sitting out here in the main passageway. We have 2 more under the chart table. And this is where they sit all day while I'm working in the aft cabin. At night, I'll put 2 batteries in here and hook them up in parallel so I have 12 volts just to run the lights, run the stereo, the computers, and have enough to get me by. It also runs the refrigeration. I used a little 18-volt circular saw to start cutting out the bad area between the battery box and below the galley sink. And then I decided I better sand the good wood in that area and prep it now for fiberglassing. That way later on I won't have all that dust flying into the galley sink area. So we got that cleaned up nicely and then went back with the multi-tool and squared off the corners where the circular saw couldn't get. And then did a little chiseling, and the old rotten board was ready to come out. Timber. Well, somehow in cutting out this panel, I didn't cut into these water pipes. I tried not to, but you know, trying doesn't always work. Sometimes it takes a bit of luck. So I dug at least 3/8 of an inch of plywood out of here, and still it's damp. I checked it with the moisture meter. It reads very high, and I can feel with my fingertips underneath here, the moisture does go back underneath the flooring. So what I'm going to have to do is pull up the flooring, and I'll come back to the stringer. No matter what happens, I just can't go back any farther than the stringer. I'll have to put new plywood from here all the way over and replace that. Okay, so this is what we have. All the rotten flooring is out of here. Good. Underneath here, this is all solid. This is good. Very sturdy. And we have a little gap in the framing for the hoses and wires to run. Once again, I got lucky. Good. I didn't hit anything with the saws. Oh, look at that. And down here, okay, this stringer is foam right here. It just never got fully encapsulated in fiberglass at the factory. So, I don't know. I'll probably put something on top of it and clean this up real good and put something on top of it to help carry the load, because we have just a tiny little speck back here to carry the aft end of this subflooring. So yeah, I'm going to have to build that up, and I'll work on that tomorrow, and then just get the materials to put everything back together. So good, the end of the destruction. Everything else is looking good and solid back up in here. This wall, maybe I'll sand this and get it ready for varnishing while everything is out of here. Okay, the worst is over with. Now just putting it all back together. Well, what just took 11 minutes in video took 2 days in real time. And there's even more rotten bulkheads and just pieces off to the left side as we're looking into the cabin here. But I didn't think you needed to see every gory little detail. But it's incredible just how much damage battery acid can do. So as this goes back together, everything will be all fiberglassed. If it isn't fiberglass, it will be fiberglassed. So if there's ever, again, any acid spillage, it won't be a problem. It won't be able to escape its containment center. And that'll all start going back together in the next video. I certainly do appreciate you watching and sticking through all of this terrible destruction. And if it was worthwhile for you, please give it a thumbs up down below there, below the screen. And if you haven't already, click on the subscribe. Okay, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you on the rebuild next time.